Welcome to today's Seidokan Saturday. Today I want to talk a little bit about the concept of attribution, plagiarism, and how that relates to the concept of Shu-Ha-Ri. Now let me start backwards first. Shu-Ha-Ri is the concept that a student first is a student and learns, then he becomes knowledgeable or understands what he's being taught, and then Ri transcends what he was taught, fully understands it to the point where he can then make those teachings malleable to himself. Ed Parker talked about the concept of system versus style. And I've mentioned this a little bit before, but the concept is that we often refer to martial arts styles by their names: Seidokan, Shotokan, Uechi-Ryu, Wing Chun Kung Fu, Tiksu Cheng Chuan Fa, Shaolin Kempo, whatever, and we refer to those as styles, when really what those are systems or transmission, I've got to find the word in my head here, methods of transmission of a curriculum. Okay, so a system is a curriculum-based methodology for transmitting knowledge. This is the process we're going to use to teach someone how to fight, defend themselves, compete, be healthy, whatever your focus in your studies of the martial arts might be. Back when it was self-defense oriented, and back in the early days of karate, or Tode as it was known in Okinawa, they didn't refer to styles. This guy defended himself with this particular technique, this guy defended himself with this particular technique, and it was all D or T or Te, hand. It was just, I defended myself. I used my hands, my body, my physical weapons to defend myself, and sometimes actual weapons. It was only later that the divide started when they went to the Butokukai, and Funakoshi notably was one early in the 1920s who separated Shuri from the city of Shuri, from the Naha, from the Tomari. And so the methods of T, the methods of defense, he sort of identified geographically and divided them up. And so systems of promulgating their self-defense techniques came about. Ed Parker posits, and I kind of like his concept, and I kind of struggle with myself because it's so ubiquitous in the community that we use the term style. What style of karate do you do? Style is individual. The system that we teach, the curriculum that we follow, the liturgy that we follow in order to teach the martial arts that we do, that we've embraced, is one thing. The method or my expression of that system will be different. We all speak the same English language, essentially, in the English-speaking world, but there are different ways of expressing or utilizing that language, even within the same family. My kids and my wife, my siblings, don't always structure our sentences the same way, and that style of expression is still based on the system of the English language. And that's true in Spanish, Japanese, French, German, whatever. So the difference between a system and a style is important first to the Shu-Ha-Ri concept. When I start with Shu, the basic learning, I'm simply learning the system, the liturgy. As I start to understand it, I develop mastery over that system of the book of knowledge, of the curriculum. I now know the curriculum fully, and at the Ri level, my own personal flavor starts to come into it. Now this is where I get to the concept of attribution, or plagiarism on the other end. It's very common, sadly, in today's world, for people to get a little bit of learning in this, and a little bit of learning in that, and a little bit of learning in that, and create their own system based on smatterings of learning, or even mastery level of learning, and then to declare, hey, I now have my own system. And if you have reached the Shu-Ha and then Ri level, great. Create your own system, establish your own curriculum and liturgy of teaching. but make sure that you separate it from whatever your root is. Now, I'm going to bring this home a little bit. In Seidokan, we have a lot of different Seidokan instructors who add their own flavor. At the root, and I asked this way back in an earlier video, what is Seidokan? At the core and at its root, we have a curriculum that was left to us by Master Toma, who over the course of his time evolved, changed, altered, added, etc. to what he was teaching. But the core of it was always the kata performed in a certain fashion, the basic 11 self-defense techniques performed in a certain fashion, the fighting, and the tweedy. So those 4 elements, and then how you break those down or instruct them, whether you emphasize sabaki and body changing, whether your emphasis is on the shift from shiko to zenkutsu, all of those things are just breaking down elements of the curriculum, still Seidokan. What happens now when we start to emphasize sport competition, tournament fighting style, whether it be Japanese tournaments, traditional style tournaments, or open style tournaments, and then we start to teach that in our dojo? Is that still Seidokan? Well, it's not the Seidokan system, but it is your dojo's style, or even your individual style within that system. That's the Ri level. We have Seidokan brothers who are focused a lot on the Oyata pressure point theory system and his method of presentation. That's all good. That's their style, as long as it doesn't alter the core of the system, which again is the kata, the basic 11, and so forth. When we begin to change those things based on the externalities that we've chosen for our style, then what do we do with that? Do we continue to attribute? Do we continue to claim it as Seidokan? Do we differentiate? Do we give credit to the outside sources? In my dojo, when I'm teaching, okay, so I've gone through several different systems where I have one of my older belts here from the Kempo system, from Shaolin Kempo. That's what I wore up through 4th Dan. I have another one hanging up here that's totally worn out. This one that I wore through a little bit in Kempo, then into when I went from white straight to black belt in Shotokan, then this is the belt that I used there. This one I purchased myself and had embroidered so that I could have Okinawan Seidokan Karate Kobudo on my belt, self-purchased. This one I actually was awarded too early in the Jukokai organization, where they don't understand the concept of Shihan being a teaching level, and so they award this at 4th degree, which technically on Okinawa, Japan, you wouldn't see until 7th, 8th degree or higher. And so I stopped wearing that way back then when I found out that they were misusing the rank system. And then this one, I decided I wanted to buy a belt that had my name and Seidokan both on it, so I self-purchased this one as well. But I've been through, as I've said before, I have put on a white belt in 7 different styles, been awarded honorary and or officially earned tested ranks in several different styles. But my Seidokan, I try, I'm not great at it, but I try to keep my Seidokan as pure as possible. This is why I educate my students in the history and the names. How many times have you run into somebody who said, oh yeah, I used to take karate, and you ask them the name of their style or their teacher, and they're clueless? Now, if they're a yellow belt early on, 6 months, 3 months, okay. But if they studied for a year, 2 years or more and don't know the lineage and history of their style or the sourcing of what they were taught, that's a fault of attribution. There are major teachers out there in the world now teaching seminars, making loads of money on YouTube and clinics that they go travel around and get paid loads of money to teach things without giving credit to where they actually learned them. I'm not going to name any names, but I had this discussion with McCarthy Sensei recently, chatting back and forth. that it's very common, sadly, for people to, I don't want to say steal, but that's where I use the term plagiarize, where they claim material is their own and don't even give attribution to the Shu and the Ha levels before they claim their Ri level. Very important that for the sake of honor and respect and so forth, that we follow the lead of Master Toma, who was the founder of Seidokan. When he decided that he wanted to teach Americans, and Uehara Sensei at that time was against teaching any gaijin, any outsider that's non-Okinawan, Toma said, no, I'm going to start teaching Americans. I want to open the dojo. He went to his teacher respectfully, Uehara Sensei, and expressed his desire to do that. And Uehara said, you have my full blessing on doing that. You just won't be Motoburyu anymore. You won't be the Udunti and in my school. So there was an intentional, amicable, willful decision to say, okay, this is my Ri. I am now going to do this. And he then incorporated the variation of the Seibukan kata that we do. He was longtime friends with Odo Sensei and Oyata and others, but he created his own Seidokan system, which we do, the system, the curriculum. So as teachers, when we add extra things, I know, for example, Carvajal Sensei is pursuing Iaido and has been authorized to teach as an official representative of his Ryuha of Iaido, his system of Iaido. He is now a recognized instructor and representative for his Iai system, but he does not call it Seidokan. Master Toma taught certain Iai techniques. If we are doing those specifically, still Seidokan. If we're then incorporating from outside, not Seidokan. Kurt Sieber Sensei for years has been a high-level student under Miguel Ibarra and his Aiki Jiu-Jitsu system. Very similar to Tweedy, but he's very conscientious about pointing out this is Aiki Jiu-Jitsu as opposed to this is Tweedy. And he studied directly under Yamauchi Sensei and Toma Sensei both, and has great experience in Tweedy, our joint locking, twisting manipulation, and is very aware of how it relates to the Aiki Jiu-Jitsu, in which he's also very highly competent. And one is one system and the other is the other system. Now, should any of those instructors decide at some point, hey, I'm going to integrate this and call it my own system of curriculum and make it an integrated thing, they would be fully within their authority to do so. At 8th or 9th degree black belt, where these guys are, perfectly within their authority to do that. In my dojo, as you've seen in my videos, I incorporate Kempo, but I attribute it separately from what is our core Seidokan. I was recently, over Christmas, given a lovely gift of this fairly expensive piece of equipment known as a Chinese cudgel. It has metal on the ends. It's a very heavy, stout, sturdy piece of wood, but it's shorter than a bow. It's not a rokushaku bow, a 6-foot bow. It is about 5 feet tall. They're meant to be at eyebrow level if it's properly sized. And so I'm starting to learn how to use this, which I've never used before, and there are specific movements of manipulating this particular weapon. The grip held here for example, turning side to side, this kind of a strike, but it's in a double overhand grip, not to be confused with the Seidokan or Okinawa Kobudo with the alternate grip, where we have a similar type movement, but it can only go one side because of the alternate grip, where with this, it's intended to be held so that you can go on either side as you change stance and shift. There are tutorials that I'm trying to follow as I'm attempting to learn this. I've had it 3 days, so I don't really know a whole lot with it. But the idea of the alternate grip also exists in the Chinese. They just do it closer together, where you can then use an entirely different type of movement with the closer grip. It's more related to what I talked about back in the bow forms that I was talking about, the Kempo, where we use a double overhand grip. So as I learn and practice with this, and eventually I'm starting to maybe learn a kata or a form based on the Chinese cudgel, is that Seidokan? Absolutely not. And it will be given attribution to the sources where I learned what I learned. It's a separate system. It's still part of my style, and it will give flavor to how I express my Seidokan, but it's still not the Seidokan system. So, when teaching, history matters. Attribution to sources matter. Keeping the system or the curriculum of our founder matters. Any additional curriculum that we add needs to be attributed separately, or have the, I want to say the McCarthy likes to say cojones, he likes, what does he say? I don't remember how he pronounced it. Anyway, to have the cojones to step up and say, okay, because I am teaching my own way, and I've altered the kata to fit my pressure point theory, or I've altered the kata in order to do competition. As long as you're keeping those separate and your core is still within the Seidokan, go for it, okay? If, however, you're teaching MMA techniques as Seidokan, or you're teaching Iaido techniques from a different Ryuha, different system as Seidokan, and not attributing it or making it clearly separate for your students, then there can be a problem. And that's where, in the old days, dojo wars would start, or acrimonious splits would occur in an organization or a system. So, Seidokan is our system. The other things we do that add flavor or that we incorporate to teach our students and add variety to our class are our style. If we then transcend the Ri and want to make what is our style into our system, then it behooves us to give the attribution, make the clean separation, and call yourself what you're going to call yourself. But as long as we keep Seidokan pure to what it is, anything else that we add for flavor, enjoy. It's a great martial journey. I love watching, I just forgot his name. The Isshin-Ryu instructor, he just visited McCarthy in Okinawa. How come I not think of his name all of a sudden? Anyway, has a big podcast. He does Chen Tai Chi, he does Kung Fu and Wing Chun system, but his root is always Isshin-Ryu, and he keeps those very clear. And when we do that, then we're being true to our system without confusing that with our personal style of expression in the martial arts. Shu-Ha-Ri, give attribution to where you got things, teach our students the history of what we're teaching, where it came from, and if at some point you want to do what you're going to do, have the cojones, have the courage to say, look, Master Uehara, I want to open my own dojo and split and do this, then bless you, you're on your own, do your thing, but you are no longer Seidokan. This happened to Ed Parker when he split from William Chow. It's happened to many instructors who've not split on good terms, and others, for example, Nick Serio in the Chinese Kempo, was given direction from his teacher, just as Toma received from Uehara. Nick Serio was told by William Chow, great, go start your own system. And it's kind of cool that William Chow actually designed a patch specifically for Nick Serio's new system and gave it to Nick Serio, which he then used, and a lot of his people still use to this day. Attribution versus plagiarism, Shu-Ha-Ri, system versus style. I hope I explained that okay with enough examples, but that's my diatribe for the day. Until next week, thanks for joining. Like, share, subscribe, call your mom. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and until next week, as always, let's keep practicing.